Yes, it's Bill Jones again. Bill Jones from Freedom's Nest, located at recapturefederalism.com. First things first, I, William R. Jones, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to same, so help me God. Today's presentation is episode 17. It is the second most important presentation I will give, I have ever given, and given into the future. The title is, and subject is, American Democratic Party, Proof of Treason. That's correct. Proof of treason. And I'm going to lay it out however long it takes. It shouldn't be that long. It's going to be the nucleus of the proof. There's other proof too. I think I have mentioned in the past, I have a 6-pound reconnaissance manual, resource manual. You've heard of white papers. I have a white book. And what I'm going to talk about today is just on 2 pages from the Communist Manifesto, and the proper term is the Manifesto of the Communist Party by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, 1848, and it has had some editing since then. But the proof of treason. In a previous episode, I talked about the biggest story since 1788, massive treason. And I laid out the argument, violations of Article 3, Section 3 of the Constitution of the United States, which is the where you'll find the word treason. A whole section. Not big section, but a whole section. The founders felt that treason was such a heinous crime. They had their own section for it, separate. It isn't included in the whole list in the legislature. It's not in the executive article. No, it's in the judicial branch article. And they had a reason to do that, because really the ones to protect the citizens from treason are triers of the case. If it's the president, they have a system set up of a trial. Charges are brought by the House, then the Senate hears it and determines whether the president's guilty of whatever the crime is that he's being charged with. And for treason, they would be the ones, in his particular case, would not be the vice president sitting in there, the president pro tem, was normally the president pro tem in the Senate. No, it's the Chief Justice of the United States that sits in on the trial. But that's getting the horse in front of the cart, isn't it? I'm not making any charge individually that the president is guilty of treason. I do think I have probable cause, but I'm not going to do that in this particular presentation. What I'm going to talk about is the whole Democratic Party, the American Democratic Party, since it's a violation of the American Constitution. And I believe they are a group getting together at various times, levying war. Again, that's one of the criteria. The third criteria is give it aid and comfort. And that aid and comfort, I would think, would be to world communism, Communist International, other communist organizations, countries, etc. The second area was adhering to enemies of the United States, both foreign and domestic. And that's what I'm going to talk about, what the American Democratic Party is adhering to. And I could say probable cause and keep myself from being in trouble, making false charges or something. But it's overwhelming. As I read this from the Communist Manifesto, I don't think there'd be any doubt in anybody's mind. All you have to do is read it. It amazes me, all the constitutional scholars we have in this country, and our educational system is so bad that all these constitutional scholars apparently are illiterate. They know how, maybe that's subjective, they know how to read, but maybe they just don't understand. Page 49, question 18. What will be the course of this revolution? Interesting question. They're declaring that there's a revolution going on, and if you're adhering to the Communist Manifesto, you're adhering to question 18. They're telling you that there's a revolution going on. And what's United States Code say about revolution and insurrection? Yeah, it's against the Constitution. It's against the law. And we'll get into that particular part deeper. But what will be the course of this revolution? And let's look at the answer. And we'll read it. There's 2 paragraphs, and then I believe it's 12 items, and then another couple of paragraphs. And I'm just going to read it without comment, hopefully. Just go through it. It starts, above all, it will establish a democratic constitution, and through this, the direct or indirect dominance of the proletariat. Talks about foreign countries right here, but I'm going to go ahead and read it anyway. They mention America later on in the manifesto. It continues. Direct in England, where the proletarians are already a majority of the people. Indirect in France and Germany, where the majority of the people consists not only of the proletarians, but also of the small peasants and petty bourgeois, who are in the process of falling into the proletariat, who are more and more dependent in all their political interest on the proletariat, and who must therefore soon adapt to the demands of the proletariat. Perhaps this will cost a second struggle, but the outcome can only be the victory of the proletariat. One small comment here. Notice the bourgeois are being brought down to the level of the proletariat, and that's what they do and how they do it. Next paragraph. Democracy would be wholly valueless to the proletariat if it were not immediately used as a means for putting through measures directed against private property and ensuring the livelihood of the proletariat. The main measures emerging as the necessary result of existing relations are the following. And now they Go on down the line for, I guess it's the 12 listings. It is 12. 1. Limitation of private property through the progressive taxation, heavy inheritance taxes, abolition of inheritance through collateral lines, brothers, nephews, etc. Forced loans, etc. And they have more and more ways of doing that. 2. Gradual expropriation of landowners, industrialists, railroad magnates, ship owners, partially through competition by state industry, partly directly through compensation in the form of bonds. That's total expropriation. Okay? That's how they operate. And as things are going on today, that's professional sports also. It's what's happening in the NFL. But I continue. 3. Confiscation of possession of all immigrants and rebels against the majority of the people. This is immigrants. This is outgoing people. That's with an EM, not an IM. That's immigration. They do utilize that also. Quick note here. Charlie Schumer, he's big on this one here. And they've increased the fee for those immigrating outward, and they've done this. That's communism. 4. Organization of labor or employment of the proletarians on publicly owned lands in factories and workshops, with competition among the workers being abolished with the factory owners, insofar as they will still exist, being obliged to pay the same high wages as those paid by the state. I hope you heard that. I hope you heard that. 5. An equal obligation on all members of society to work until such time as private property has been completely abolished. Formation of industrial armies, especially for agriculture. Armies, violence, hatred. 6. Centralization of money and credit in the hands of the state through national bank with state capital, and the suppression of all private banks and bankers. In America, we call that the Federal Reserve. And their member banks, national banks. 7. Increase the number of national factories, workshops, railroads, ships, bringing new lands into cultivation and improvement of land already under cultivation, all in proportion to the growth of capital and labor force at the disposal of the nation. Oh, we got private farmers, don't we? Oh, yeah. But they get subsidies, don't they? That's how you do that. Number 8. Education of all children from the moment they can leave their mother's care in national establishments of at national cost, education and production together. Let me repeat that since I screwed it up. 8. Education of all children from the moment they can leave their mother's care in national establishments at national cost, education and production together. I just can't resist making comments on some of these things, and especially this one here. Common Core, Operation Head Start, goes way back. Vladimir Lenin's famous quote, "You give me your children for 8 years, and I'll give you a Bolshevik for life." That's where this comes from. We have number 9. Construction on public lands of great palaces as communal dwellings for associated groups of citizens engaged in both industry and agriculture, combining in their way of life the advantages of urban and rural conditions while avoiding the one-sidedness and drawbacks of each. 10. Destruction of all unhealthy and jury-built dwellings in urban districts. That comes to mind. And I was, as a child, I had to move out of a neighborhood because of urban renewal in Hyde Park, not from far from where the president's residence is in Chicago, near the University of Chicago. That was part of that program. It's part of the FHA up until Communist Care came through. Obamacare, some people call it. Communist Care. Prior to that, there was a Federal Housing Authority Act, 1949, FHA. Yeah, that's Communist Housing Authority. That's what it is. Going back to that. 11. Equal inheritance rights for children born in and out of wedlock. There you go again. Destruction of the family, which I talked about in the last episode. And last but not least, and there's surely others, but not listed, and we'll get into that, but 12. Concentration of all means of transportation in the hands of the nation. Amtrak. They have railroad workers have their own retirement program, different from Social Security, etc., etc. Now, to finish this off in 18, there's two more paragraphs, and I'll read them. It is impossible, of course, to carry out all these measures at once, but one will always bring others in its wake. Once the first radical attack on private property has been launched, the proletariat will find itself forced to go ever further, to concentrate increasingly in the hands of the state-owned capital. All agriculture, all transport, all trade. All of the foregoing measures are directed to this end, and they will become practicable and feasible, capable of producing their centralizing effects to precisely the degree that the proletariat, through its labor, multiplies the country's productive forces. Interesting. Radical attack. Again, violence and hatred. That's what you get when you get communism. And isn't that what they're talking about? What was the question again? What will be the course of this revolution? It's going to be violence and hatred, class struggle, no equal protection under the law. The last paragraph. Finally, when all capital, all production, all exchange have been brought together in the hands of the nation, private property will disappear of its own accord, the money will become superfluous, and the production will so expand and man so change that society will be able to slough off whatever its old economic habits may remain. Wow. A totalitarian society. 1984 Orwellian society. That's where we're going. Will we go as far as Pol Pot and the communists in the killing fields of Cambodia? Sure hope not. We need to stop it before then. Maybe we can get some help from the people in the courts. They're the ones that's supposed to be doing it. Or are they part of the problem? But that's the proof. Things need to be done. The free citizen class needs to stand up. File charges against the American Democratic Party. Maybe even sue them. Bankrupt them. That's what needs to be done. But there is your proof. You want further proof? I'll continue to give that to you also. Until next time, good day.